Hi, hello, it's me, Unkempt Snugglepepper, back for another art critique from Reddit. Today we have a cowgirl. If you like this video, be sure to give me a like, subscribe. I also have Buy Me a Coffee link down in the doobly-doo. I have links if you want to submit your own artwork. So let's get into it. I'm going to start today with saying, number one, this is something I would never think of drawing. And I think that's really cool. I think it's an interesting concept. So that's neat that she's like a cow person. Oh, look, one of her spots is like a heart. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Um, One of her spots is a heart. She's holding a burger. She has a bunch of cows behind her. I don't think I've ever seen an actual cow hung up after everything's been taken off. I think they might be bigger. I'm not sure. That's something to double check. I'm going to start with the composition overall, though. With the cow meat in the background and the counter that she's sitting on, they're very saturated. And she is very unsaturated. So the focus is to the cow meat in the back and not necessarily her, even though she's really cool. So I think one of the things that I would do is give her a bit more saturation. I'm going to do this by selecting kind of a medium light pink and then setting the layer to soft light. And that gives her skin just a little bit more pink. Otherwise, she looks a bit dead. So that's already bringing her out as it is. The next thing that I would do is take some of the background down a notch so that she can be the main focus. So what I'm going to do is set a layer to saturation. And I'm going to go with a fairly dark color, usually black. And I'm just going to color in these hunks of meat. Never thought I'd say that literally. But I don't want them to be completely gray. And I don't want everything around her to be completely gray. But this is where I'm going to start. I also notice she's missing part of a leg. I don't know if that was intentional or if the layer just disappeared on you. So now I have that grayed down, I'm going to bring the opacity of the layer down just a little bit. So now we have more focus on her. We also see the meat. We're not going to miss the meat. But there's more focus on her. The other thing I would do is take this big piece of meat and move it towards the edge of the canvas. That way we have more framing going on. Okay, so moving into anatomy. A few notes. The face is a little lopsided. I highly recommend flipping the canvas back and forth as you are painting. So the lips are just a little off center. It would be there if that's our nose. And then this eye would move just a little bit. All right, so with the anatomy, the face is pretty accurate. I would note that there's not quite this much shadow all the way underneath the lip. The thing that is interesting is that here is the center of her breastbone. Here is where her rib cage would go. So we have this breast that is sticking way too far out compared to where her rib cage should be and where her shoulder should be. As this arm is reaching up, we're going to have a bit more shadow because there is that recess in the armpit, but also this breast tissue and her her cute little dress are going to pull upwards more. So one breast should be about here, and the other breast should hang. So you're going to have kind of a slanted nipple line. And then come in here and come out there. A note with the hand, it's very hard to hold something with your hand straight out and flat. Usually when people are holding trays, it's resting on the pads of their finger, and there's going to be a bit of a dip where it hits the back end of the palm, and then the fingers move to hold the rest of it. It's very hard to hold your hand straight out, flat, horizontal like that. If you are, you're going to have a slight tilt, which is going to tilt the cool looking burger. Another note with anatomy is that when we sit down, our thighs tend to flatten out. So this is going to be a bit more flat. I'm going to pretend the other boot is like here. I think this part almost feels too long. I know that her foot is pointed straight down, but that still feels too long. And we would actually be seeing the side, a little bit of the side of her foot, and if she's wearing any sort of heel, we would be seeing that as well. But this feels much too long in comparison to the rest of her legs. With the reflection, I assume you mean that she's sitting on a shiny surface and light is bouncing this way and then back up, and that's why we're getting the reflection of her skin tone. However, one side is going to have that reflection if light is coming from here, and the other side is just going to have her shadow, even if it's shiny. So with the changes in saturation, if you ever have shaved an animal to have them fixed and they have any sort of spots, you will notice that the skin underneath white fur is still kind of pink, and where the spots are is a different color. So if you give her more saturation and these spots begin to have that reddish brown appearance, and I believe one of the commenters on the original post say that these spots tend to be bigger. With these spots, I would go with a warmer brownish black. So where I have selected is still somewhat desaturated, still closer to black. However, there's just a little bit of color to it. And then with her skirt, you shade this portion, but you kind of leave like her boots and the bottom of her skirt to a bit more of our imagination. And I noticed that a lot of these are very desaturated, and you're almost shading just pure black and white and grays. So I would increase some of the shadow more to better define where the light source is coming from. Anytime we are dealing with objects that are black or white, even though the entire object is black and white, there's still a lot more color that can be placed in there to give it some life. Otherwise, it's going to look like you painted part of it in grayscale and part of it in full color. So if we give her some blue in her outfit, then this reddish dark brown, they still read as being very dark. Changing the hue slightly allows us to separate what is the dress and what is her spots, while both still read as being black. You'll notice if you ever try to wear all black that some blacks are more green, some blacks are more blue, some blacks are more brown. Also, sitting under the dress, her legs would receive more shadow. I think her skin tone overall can be more saturated, and she'll still read as being a black and white literal cowgirl. Adding that little bit of color is also going to separate her from the background, especially if we desaturate the background and bring the saturation of her her blacks and whites up. And then I find it interesting that you shaded her bodice, but you never shaded her boot. We'll do that real quick. And perhaps it's because the boot was starting to get lost, which, depending on the type of boot, you could add a bit more highlight to remind us that the boot is there. So yeah, overall that's a really cool piece. Those are the changes that I would recommend and suggest. I think you're doing a lot of individual elements well, but when you put them all together to create the overall composition, there are a few things that are kind of getting lost. And if you want the attention to be a little less on her and a little bit more on the burger she's holding, not to say that the beautiful meat sculptures in the background aren't important, but I would say the thing you would want to know is, she's a cowgirl holding a burger, or is it a burger being held by a cowgirl? Which sounds like the same thing, but it's the visual hierarchy of what we want the viewer to see first. If it is the burger that we want to see first, I would increase the saturation on the burger. And then it becomes a hierarchy that we see: 1, the burger; 2, the cool cowgirl; and 3, that she also has her brethren beside her. This is such a weird but cool piece. And I'm not sure the best words to describe it, but it is very interesting. I hope you keep doing art. I hope these suggestions are helpful. If you did find this helpful, be sure to give this video a like or a comment. If you like this kind of video, be sure to give a subscribe. And down in the doobly-doo, you will find the links to buy me a coffee, as well as a place to submit your own artwork. That's all I have. Have a good one.